Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dads on Life, the weekly episodic show about parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Keith Bogan, Doug Hammondike, and Chad Holloway. Today, we're going to be talking about sports and our kids in sports, ourselves in sports through and extracurricular activities. Other things. I mean, obviously there's some things that are done, intramurals, things like that. And the differences that we went through as kids and what our kids are going through. And obviously the evolution of sports, safety, things like that. So, to kick things off, I remember specifically, as a kid, the way things were handled with sports, as I came through it, it kind of was where the changes started of how sports would be, how sports and what sports have become. It wasn't really a big time about participation. It was still more about competition, and I think honestly, competition even now is a great thing. You had, when I was young, I was in wrestling with the local team here, the rec team, the Mat Rats. It still is, I believe. I don't know if they're called the Mat Rats still, but they were the local team I was involved in here in Old Bridge. That was about it. I played a little bit of football here and there, baseball, but never really very good at much of it except for wrestling. And things changed as I got older, and I know it changes for a lot of kids as they get older, from the elementary years to up through high school. So, Chad, you obviously keep yourself in quite good shape. We've seen this as you've demonstrated in that
Thank you.
picture that we all looked at and went, what?
Who's that dude?
Earlier this week. So what were things like with you growing up with sports?
So growing up, it was very kind of strange for me, I think, because I had a time when my mom and I would move around quite a bit from one town to the next, and then she got married, and we moved to another town, and just kind of on a fluke, I went out for the track team, and this was probably in 6th grade, and we had to run out to this one area, so it's probably 2 or 3 miles away, and I just was like kind of just going normal, but I ended up being the second person there. So right away, the coach is all over me going, "Oh, do you like to run? Do you want to run distance? Do you want to run for us?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So that was a turning point in my life, because I would have had a whole different group of friends, I think, if I would not have been an athlete. But that was kind of my pivotal point where I became an athlete. So I got into track, and I ran a little bit of distance. I was never very good, but I did participate. And then later on, I got into wrestling and football. And then we actually had weightlifting competitions at our school, just kind of and within the school,
right,
as well. So I was in that a lot as well. I don't think, and before that, maybe I did a little bit of Little League, but that was kind of outside the school system.
Mm-hmm.
But it was much, at that time, I think it was much easier to be an athlete. Because I know before the show we were talking, and I think it was Doug that said, you can't just decide you're going to be an athlete in 8th grade, because you've already missed out on 6 years of training, and
sure,
they seriously train the kids at that age. So that was kind of my experience. Was I just, participated in, I was an okay wrestler, okay football player, nothing special, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the training aspect of it, and I still train. From a weightlifting perspective, and just trying to maintain some sort of physical shape. But but it's changed a lot, and I think we'll probably on the second round talk about how it impacted our children, I'm assuming. But
Right.
for me, it was kind of fun. It was good. It was a good way to keep me busy. And I will say two other things. My parents said that never pushed me into sports, but they did
Right.
say if you start something, you have to finish it, and if you're going to do it, you got to give it your all.
Hmm.
That was their whole thing. So you got to, kind of put some things. Don't quit.
Right. Right. It's a very good way to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To have that positive mental attitude, to be able to and keep that, is something that is uh, critical in not just in sports, but in child development as it is as well. Um,
Yep.
Doug, you were mentioning, like as you said before we came on, mentioning if you didn't, and Chad brought it up, if you didn't start early, you want to take a swing at this, so to speak, pun intended.
Yeah, I just was, well, initially we were talking about prior to this was just, yeah, that, if you come from a family that isn't into sports and all, and decide the kids that, at school are teasing you way too much, and you're going to go out and try to do a sport, because I was homeschooled up until then. So there was no technical sports, let's say, and you're going to decide to make a big splash and join something. Right away, they said, "Hey, you're 105 pounds, dude, and you can go up to 120, and you're 6 foot tall. There ain't many people that are really going to be opposing you, for wrestling."
Mm-hmm.
So I tried that, but all these kids, they already knew everything, and me starting as a novice in 8th grade was nearly ridiculous, you know people like they would just think of it as a joke and pick me up and slap me around.
Because of your height, you had your center of gravity was different than theirs was. So yeah, although they were the same, you were bigger. That
Yeah.
doesn't always translate.
So it was a very interesting time. At least by the time I got to 9th grade, it was skiing, and we were also mentioning that we might hit on some non-sports things, which I did stage crew and stuff. But
Right.
growing up in a house where my dad, we never watched sports, never went to sporting activities, neither my mom or anything, unless a friend of ours like invite us out, like to go see either hockey or a baseball game. But of course, we didn't know anything necessarily about what was going on. And my parents always, if it was on a church night, you couldn't participate. So that crosses out most of your sports that are done by your town and local leagues. So if it was on a Sunday or on a Wednesday night or something, you couldn't. So they signed us up for a Christian version of the Boy Scouts, which we had a great time with battalion, and was taught by an old Harley guy, with the big ZZ Top beard. And he taught us a ton of great life lessons, and he took us camping all the time and fishing in Canada and stuff. So it was a worthwhile adventure, but was it sports? No. So that's about it.
Keith.
That's good.
My experience will sound dramatically different, and I can tell the story only because I'm the beneficiary of recent conversations I've had with my brothers. One of them is a avid genealogist, if you will. He done a tremendous amount of work. My oldest of my three older brothers done a lot of work putting together details of our lineage, if you will. So I did not get to participate in sports much at all when I was a kid. To go back further than that, my father was born in Germany just before the rise of Hitler. And very early on, I think we've traced it to he was about 6 when they started running across Europe trying to get away from Hitler himself, his brother, his parents, and one cousin. The reason I tell the background there is that when my father finally arrived here, 1948-ish, marries my mother 3 years later. He has 4 kids, and he very studiously taught us, as we've now labeled it, to hide in plain sight, to not be noticed.
Right.
So part of that strategy, we believe, was not allowing us to participate in sports under the guise of, they're too dangerous, you're going to get hurt. But what Dad was really doing was he grew up in a world where if he was seen, he would be shot.
Right.
And he translated that to us, protecting us from something that didn't exist as much in this country, but he lived his whole life in silent terror of that.
Sure.
So it wasn't until I was 12 years old that I got to play, after asking every year, because we were always encouraged to watch sports. My father was an avid baseball fan. He was a soccer referee growing up when he was younger. He was very athletic. So we were always encouraged to watch sports, but I begged to play, and I didn't get to be part of Little League until I was 12. And just like you guys described it, I never played. I never even put on a glove. Well, that's not true. I never played in an organized way. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
So it was a horrible year and the coach was like, I got other players who know what they're doing, so I'm just going to stick them in the outfield and leave them there. And I got no teaching. Nobody took me aside and tried to coach me or anything. So it was a miserable 1 year of Little League. That was the same year that I dabbled in wrestling. I don't know if I ever told you that, Jason.
No.
I apparently I was this skinny little runt, so I was in a very lightweight class, and I was fairly adept at maneuvering. So I actually had a little bit of skill, but my parents outright said, "Nope, too dangerous, can't do that. We don't want you near it."
Mm-hmm.
I toyed with the idea of track because as a young man, when I was a freshman in high school, I was extremely fast. I don't know why, and I'm not anymore by any means, but I was really fast back then. I don't even know if I asked to be on the track team because by then I had not participated in so many things that I wasn't popular. I didn't participate in stuff with everybody else, so I wasn't in the in crowd by any means. So I think it probably was more me saying, well, track would be fun, but then I'd have to hang out with people who don't really like me. So I never went to. My biggest sport growing up, I played, bear with my joke here, I was first board of the chess team. That was my sport. I didn't get to be physically active at all. That would change later in life. I became an avid softball player. I'm one of those big time Sunday guys. I loved to play the game, won a lot of championships. I actually was fairly, for someone who never played organized sports, I was fairly good for quite some time. That's sort of diminished over the years now. But as a kid growing up, a lot of sports fandom, almost no activity.
Right.
What's your story, Jason?
Me, like you said, essentially, very much with the. I'm still not exactly the biggest person in the world. At 5'6" and all of 140 whatever pounds.
I hate him. He's so light. It's disgusting.
So wrestling at 105 as a freshman in high school, I could, and being a little bit lankier, I could maneuver around and out pretty well. Still to an extent can do it. But that was pretty much about it. I wrestled in high school for a while. Then one thing that happens in high school is politics on a team.
Oh, yeah. And the local leagues, too, the local rec leagues.
And I got involved in a political situation with the coach that I shouldn't have had it taken out on me the way it was. Put it that way. It was taken out on me, and I quit. I had had enough by my sophomore year, really. And what was done to me pretty much put me in a pretty bad position for about a year before I could even think about trying to get back to it. And that was the end of that. So I decided that sports wasn't for me and went into what, as you mentioned, would become my sport, choir. And this brings back the competition aspect. We were good. We were very good in Oldbridge. Couple would brought home a pretty good amount of trophies, and up until a couple of years ago, as the program fell apart within the last like 10 years, they were still bringing them home 15 years later. So, but yeah, it was wrestling. I was wrestling through middle school, in high school. And then it just, like I said, in high school, it just was, I knew the politics were there in middle school, but I kind of avoided it and ignored it and just got through. By high school, there was no chance of doing that. So, switched over, went into the arts and stuff like that. But and then unfortunately, well, not fortunately, but unfortunately, because I didn't think about it, was when there was the big move as they merged our high school. Well, they merged our high schools. My sophomore year was the first year that Old Bridge was merged as one school. So that was when the school board and everyone else involved in town started to, well, the administration in town started to go, well, we don't have enough sports to field some of these teams. So then they're like, okay, if we want people and kids involved in sports, what do we do? Well, then they started going, well, there's this sport that they play in high school in this state, and this sport that they play in high school in this state. And that led to the rise, the bringing in of lacrosse, golf, bowling, ice hockey. We put a pretty decent ice hockey. Now I think every town in New Jersey has a hockey team. There's girls hockey. There's field hockey. Field hockey became pretty big in Old Bridge. And that, I mean, so obviously softball, baseball, basketball, football made their mark, but we put out some pretty good golfers and bowlers out of town as well. In fact, I know there's a couple of bowlers from the high schools that have made it to the PBA. And there's a couple in the area, some major PBA, Professional Bowling Association bowlers that have made a name for themselves and are Hall of Famers and are worth a freaking ton of money from bowling, believe it or not. But yeah, Old Bridge was one of the first major communities in New Jersey to start putting out these teams to get kids more involved. It's a great thing. Unfortunately, I kind of just blinked and it was gone. I'm like, shit, maybe I should have tried this or that or done this or that. Maybe I would have, but unfortunately, I actually became a decent bowler 10 years too late. And then, well, actually probably about 15 years too late almost. I got to stop exaggerating that and realize how far I really am out of high school at this point.
Because after all, Jason is so old, whatever.
I'm out of high school almost 25 years, so it really isn't.
Hey, Jason, shut up. Just shut up.
Anywho, and I personally think that hopefully going forward, there's been some issues with funding of sports in the state. Hopefully that will change, and they'll start being able to put some of the money back into the other programs, like I said, golf, bowling, hockey, hockey. Obviously, hockey is a prohibitively expensive sport. I understand that. I absolutely understand that. But bowling, no. Golf, it can be, but you can go to Dick's and stuff like that and pick up a good set of clubs. Not that expensive either. And there's golf courses all over the place here. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that's but there's other things that have lost funding in schools in the state as well. So as my kids come up, I'm hoping that that'll happen. Right now, my girls are in jiu-jitsu. Delena's been in jiu-jitsu for the better part of 3 years almost now. And that includes about 3 months where she had a fractured ankle that had to heal, so she missed 3 months. And actually not happy about it, but her sister caught up to her, although she's a couple of years younger. When it comes to belt level, they are the same belt level. Thank God they're in different classes right now.
That's rough.
But that 3 months was something that Delana lost, and it hurt her a little bit. It was just more disappointing to her that she did it, but she did it goofing around. So she kind of did it to herself, shot herself in the foot,
Literally.
essentially, pun intended again. But the one thing that with Delana that has already crossed my mind is the eventual, I think both of them. I think Delana has an instinct that I had as a wrestler when I was younger. I had that instinct of it just, clicking and knowing the situation you're in and knowing that you can get, I had moments where I could get on the mat and the first contact with my opponent, that was it. I knew in my head that was it. It wasn't going down the way they may have thought it was going to go to. And I think Delana has that as well. Sadie definitely has it. It's just a matter with Sadie, it's going to be more focused and getting her to. But Delana is on a competition track, I think now. As the more time goes on, she gets closer and closer where she's impressed some of her coaches, and they're really only just doing warm up and stuff like that right now.
Are you telling me she's going to be a wrestler?
No. I'm saying that Delana is going to can very well be a competition for jiu-jitsu very quickly.
Okay. Back there, yeah.
Wrestler as in, are you talking, am I thinking, you're talking about like Greco-Roman wrestling, not professional wrestling?
I don't know in your household.
I'm going to put it this way. I put absolutely nothing past either one of my daughters.
But
Do I think that if Delana walked onto a mat in wrestling for the local rec team, she'd probably kick somebody's ass really easily.
Well, I wouldn't want to go up against her, that's for sure.
She doesn't know how to get low. She doesn't know how to lower her center of gravity, and she still can push me around easily. And I mean, I'm digging my heel in, and she pushes me like I'm nothing.
when I tell you, around in our area, we actually have several girls that are very good wrestlers, and my understanding is now it's a high school sport.
That has been discussed and actually has been approved in a couple of districts around the country.
Yeah.
I know Texas has done it. Texas has been doing it for years. Has had girls wrestling. There was one either in Pennsylvania or Connecticut, I think, that approved it. That approved that they're going to do girls wrestling. If that catches on in this area, with some of the boys who have come through New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, unfortunately, we don't keep them in state. That's one thing we cannot do, is keep wrestlers in state here. They end up in Iowa, they end up in Oklahoma, they end up out west. But there's some damn good wrestlers, and I mean, just looking at seeing some of the kids that are in jiu-jitsu with her, there's some of them that could be scary on a wrestling mat, really scary. So yeah, hopefully that'll spread like wildfire. I hope through this country, girls wrestling.
Our next door neighbor, the son, the oldest, he's was a state champion, but he messed it all up with drugs. And that was unbelievably sad. He's all ready to go away to college. And man, you just saw the offers this kid got. Drugs, man.
Really?
Unfortunately, an all too common story.
But now you're talking about also the girls. And for us, when we go down to the barber shop, if they ain't talking about like girls wrestling and whatnot in the barber shop, well, it's mostly talking shit about the town. Then it's girls wrestling. And, I don't have much to say about it, but hearing these coaches that come in for haircuts and all and talk about it, you're right. Here in Lehigh Valley, it's big.
Yeah. I had heard there was one in Pennsylvania. I think it was one of the towns. I'd have to look up I know the person. I just can't remember her name, what town it is. But they added a program, and I think that's what I had seen. And I think it was Lehigh Valley. She's actually very close to you, believe it or not. Another friend of mine.
Yeah, that's probably what they're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, it's coming. Hopefully, that's one thing I'd really like to see would be girls wrestling become big. Actually, I'd love to see a resurgence in wrestling in the state. It's kind of been kicked down the line a little bit by some of the football programs. I thought with us moving into the Big Ten, it would have become a major factor in the state to keeping kids in state. It didn't work.
So, wrestling is just not a revenue generating sport. It really isn't.
No.
Especially when you've got a major football program that is trying desperately to be relevant. And you've got the core four sports are going to take a high precedence. Especially I don't want to go down COVID times right now, but in COVID times, I'll just say most of the programs that aren't major four sports are in danger.
Yes.
We could literally lose every other extracurricular sport and program besides football, or certainly the four major sports for the next 2 to 3 years, because the funding is just so wrecked. I tell you, it's interesting. In my house, there's just no conversation about things like wrestling. They never cared about the boys, without any direction from us, never had any interested in what I would call the contact sports. So although they would go on to play flag football, they never played real football. They never talked about wrestling. In my house, I talked about me. My wife was sister to a professional baseball player. So along with the fact that I was a huge baseball junkie to begin with, my now ex-brother-in-law, Eddie, was a minor league player in the Baltimore Orioles system for 4 years. He was a very highly accomplished baseball player. He's one of the best baseball players of his generation that New Jersey put out. So there was a lot of emphasis on baseball. And that combined with the fact that I was determined that my boys would not be raised the way I was in terms of access to sports and, the way we were hidden, the way my brothers and I were hidden from sports and protected or denied it. So my boys grew up playing flag football. They played basketball. And these are the organized leagues, and particularly baseball. And I coached all three of them. I was a coach for 8 or 9 years in all three sports. I was heavily involved in all three leagues. Everything to give them every access. But like you said, Chad, and the way you grew up, my boys grew up the same way you grew up, which is, okay, if you play to the end. You show up for every game. You show up for every practice. That is your priority. You carry your own equipment from the time they were 5 years old. If they wanted to participate, we never would touch their stuff. They had to carry their own crap.
Mm-hmm.
And they got it. They got it all right from day one. So, it was a lot. When you start talking about that, it's a lot more than playing baseball. It's a teaching responsibility, making sure you don't forget stuff, you don't lose personal possessions, things like that, carry your own stuff. So sports, to me, I used it as a way to teach the kids a lot of, core values, which I think is what youth sports should be all about. Unfortunately, my fellow coaches, who, my kids were kind of average athletes, nothing exciting. Jeremy was never, the younger one was never as interested in sports, but he played. The older one, Justin, was huge. He's hugely competitive, loves playing sports. But neither one of them was overly talented per se. They were just much more passionate about it than a lot of their peers who were much more talented than they were. Didn't care as much. And they're, I'm sure you've seen this in all the sports leagues. Who are most of the coaches? They're the fathers of, and typically the fathers, not even the mothers, fathers of the star athlete. Well, my family, I would just had average athletes. So when I coached, I would coach the entire team, and my kids would just be one of the kids or two of the kids on the team. That was it. I coached because I was teaching core values, because I was teaching great ways to become a man. Those guys were coaching because their kid was the star athlete, and they thought they were going to be center field for the New York Yankees someday. And they were more often than not very cool people. They were, they would just literally ignore everybody else and focus on their own kid. Did we lose Doug?
I don't know. Yeah.
Come back to the video. Look at that.
It's a stupid cat.
He caught him. He caught him is what it was.
How do I stop that?
Anyway, from my perspective, the way I was raised, the exposure I got, the involvement I had in sports was very, very much an influencing factor on how I would treat my own kids. And like many other things in the way I was raised, despite the fact that I have a great deal of respect for my mother and father, I was determined to do it completely differently than it was done for me, completely differently. So they had an enormous amount of exposure to the sports. It's funny you should mention politics, Jason, because Jeremy retired from sports by the time he got out of 8th grade because he just wasn't interested.
Right.
Justin went on to play 2 years of high school baseball, but in his junior year was cut from the team in spring training because one of the star freshmen coming in came in with his Rat Pack. It was like an entire team graduated into high school, all of his friends, and it was very obvious what the politics were. He basically went to the coach, his dad went to the coach and said, if you want my son, you got to take all his friends. And it was like 3 or 4 of his friends were not nearly as good as Justin, but they got put on the team and Justin got cut. So, we had to work through that issue in high school of that was Justin's introduction to politics and bullshit.
Right.
And he was very disillusioned. He was very, very hurt by the fact that he knew he wasn't the best kid on the team, but he was a fairly talented left-handed pitcher, left-handed first baseman, with skills that could be developed. And he just got pushed aside because of the political intrigue, if you will. And that was sort of Justin's retirement from sports on an organized level. But that turned into the competitive juices for both of them are really, really strong now. So Jeremy went on to be the head of the strategy committee on the robotics team. He went on to be the first trumpet for the last 3 years of high school. Justin was the first trumpet when he was in high school, and they won a state championship together on the marching band. So they both done very, very well in these things that now, by the way, get letters, jackets and letters and all that stuff. Marching band gets jackets and letters, although they chose not to take them. But robotics can get a jacket and a letter. Things that when we were kids, we would have been horrified. Like, that's hard. What, are you kidding me? Those aren't sports and all that stuff.
Oh, no. In Oak Ridge, they always got them. We've always gotten them, yeah.
My kids chose to decline because they wanted to focus on other things in terms of where to put the money, because jackets are pretty expensive. They got their letters. They're like stuck in a drawer somewhere. They don't care about that. But, the competitive juices that I guess I helped teach them when they were growing up, they shifted from athletics into the less traditional athletics of robotics and marching band. And then to this day, Jeremy's going to go to Ohio State and he's going to be very heavily involved in the robotics team. Both of them have been, Justin's been a member of the USC marching band for 3 years now. I'm absolutely passionate about it. Obviously, I think I've mentioned many times that, they're both drum corps rats, and Justin has 5 years, Jeremy has 3 years in that. So all of that was outgrowth of how sports impacted me, and then in turn how it impacted them as they were growing up. So, a lot of the success in their life came out of the sports birth, if you will.
Right.
I think it's also for us. It was very interesting with the non-sports, but my boys they did soccer for years, and I guess part of it was tough because the church offered a soccer team, when they started going to Catholic school, but they were very non-competitive, and my kids didn't like it because there wasn't many teams to play against, and being non-competitive and just constantly doing drills and playing each other was not where they wanted to be. And we had to actually move them over to like more working playing with the town. But of course then I wound up being a part-time coach for that too. The only good thing is that I watched a lot of soccer, up until then, so I was able to do that. But I think an excellent choice, if they're not doing like a competitive sport, is the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. I can't tell you how many things that they learned as life skills for their own and or team building skills, and just doing a lot of different courses with them, because I have been the leader for, I don't know, I've been doing it for like 10 or 12 years now, I think. So yeah, I've been leading Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts for a long time now, and just seeing them grow and them grow as a team together, as a group. And a lot of places offer like, they have like rope courses nowadays and all, but team building things. And to see like, a bunch of kids that are, I don't know, 7 to 12, and have a tire up on top of a totem pole and tell them that they have to get it down without touching the pole. That's interesting to see them all work together with what they could find and come up with a way to do that, and how to get over like different walls and things like that. It's cool when they all get together and do things. And or if they get set up their own campsite, that's exciting too. The time that you get there and that you've taught them how to tie all the knots and stuff and how to build a fire. And when you get there, you see these 7-year-olds and stuff actually be able to do it. You're like, damn, they were listening. I mean, we've been on winter camporees where we competed against 50 other teams, and we came in 4th place more recently. And my boys were complaining because we were the last ones that had to build a fire, and it started to snow. And they were like, we only got 2 matches and we got to build this, and nobody else had to do it in the snow. And then you have to burn this rope. It's like 6 foot high. So you need a flame that's going to burn the rope, So they give you a little bag of wood, and 2 matches, and you got to do it. They did it in the snow, made themselves like a little like shield to block the wind and all, and they did it, and they came out as one of the top teams to like do it. And you're like, damn, these kids are, like I said, they're listening and they know what to do. They know how to, if they had to, actually survive. So it's really cool, like what they could learn and what they could do on their own. And it amazes me too, like when you're the leader or a coach, and you see the team actually go out there and perform and do things as they should and work together. I don't know. I'm always taken away every time I see it happen.
Yeah, I like that stuff. I like that stuff too, seeing them work together as a team. And then, to your point, Doug, it sounds like almost like in this situation where they were building this fire, it's almost like they were the underdogs, right? Because they had some disadvantages going on that the environment changed on them. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I really think that sports brings to kids as well, is those times to rally. And when you get down, the other team's winning, but you're on that 5-yard line. Can you will that ball across that goal line? You know what I mean? And being able to get a couple of those wins changes how people feel, about life and about the different challenges they meet, because they've been successful at overcoming a position where they could potentially lose, right? So right. I always think those are really good. But, just some of the ways that I used to, my kind of theory, I guess, on how I raised my son was I wanted him to be exposed to as much as we could. So, hey, let's go out. Let's try wrestling was my sport. I was really hoping he was going to take to wrestling, but he didn't. And, we took him to a practice, and like somebody was saying, those kids are all ready. And at 8 years old, they're animals. And so
Yeah.
some kid just grabs him and cranks him over on his back. And he's looking at me, and I could tell it's like he's in pain. And this kid just like tightening up his grip and everything. And it wasn't his thing, but he tried. And, that's the main thing. And same, he had sports. He played soccer for a long time. And I always thought he should be a kicker on the football team because he had such a strong left foot. He would score as a defender on the soccer team from the goal side of the half line at times. He had done that a couple times. And I'm like, your left foot is just so strong. I'm like, let's like, I'll send you to a coach and let's coach you into being a field goal kicker and a kicker for the football team. I said, that's, you're not going to be getting banged around as much, and you have a lot of stress, but didn't want to. It's one of those things. He had some skill, and I saw it, but he wasn't interested. So there went that.
Chad, how long ago was that?
That was probably his freshman or sophomore year in high school.
It's about 5 years ago.
So does he regret not following that up now?
I don't think so. I think he's pretty happy with the way things are now. And, and the thing now that he does is he will, he's at school now, so he doesn't play collegiate athletics, but he does have like the what do they call them? What's the name of those, the sports that are kind of
Intramurals.
Intramurals. He plays intramurals. So then he has a blast. And that's why I told him, I said, enjoy yourself. That's the main thing. But he's taken some things away, I think, from some of his experiences, earlier in his life that will stay with him, in terms of competition and discipline and those kinds of things. And also he's had some bad experiences, to Keith's point, we had a coach in basketball, and this guy was a real good coach, and our team always does very well, but he eats through. I'm like, these kids are 14, 15, 16 years old, and you're just grinding through these kids. Yeah. And, and when I was in school, we would have practices on Sunday, but it was always one of those things where the coach would be like, hey, if you guys come here on Sunday at 1 p.m., the side door might be open, and I might be here doing some things. And so we'd have practice, right? But it was all like kind of unofficial, right? But they just say, okay, now from 1 to 4 on Sunday, we're practicing. And they would practice 3 hours a day, every day. I mean, just like eats them up. But the team's good, and it was not good for Frankie, my son, but it was good for the team, I guess. But he didn't finish that out. He finished up his junior year, and then switched over to volleyball actually for 3 of his 4 years. So he enjoyed volleyball too, and he had some real good coaches there, and it's a fast sport and a fun sport, and I actually like it a lot. I was going to say something else too. So Jason, you were talking about going into choir. So my stepdaughter was on the dance team, but her love and her passion was singing and choir. Mm-hmm. And one of the girls on the dance team goes, why would you go out for choir? Only the nerds and losers go out for that. And she didn't go. And I'm like, it's one of those things where I go, that if she would, that probably would have been life-changing for her to go out for that, and to like really, she could have really shown, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That was her chance to shine. And but we all are susceptible to listening to these bozos in our teen years,
Yep.
Right.
Which is unfortunate. But anyway, that was just kind of a story about that. And then 2 other points.
Okay.
Keith, you talked about families that train the kids really, they're kind of the hardcore parents and everything. Mm-hmm. We have somebody, and we have those parents here too, but we have a family here who the community loves. They're the nicest people. He is from Samoa, and you guys may have seen, I've posted some stuff about AJ Epinesa. His dad came from Samoa and was a college football player at a small university, and then actually transferred to Iowa and was able to play there. He raised his sons, and AJ is the big boy of the group. He's probably like 6'6", 6'7", and probably 270. So he's now with the Buffalo Bills.
Oh,
I knew that name sounded familiar.
Yeah. But what he's done, and what they still do, is he has all the boys come over to his house. He has them running up and down hills. He'll train them. He trains everybody. If you come to his house, he doesn't care who you are. He will give you equal attention and equal training. People donate Gatorade and water and stuff like that
Mhm.
for everybody to drink, and he'll come up with live videos and those kinds of things. But it's a super family. And then every night after the games, well, when AJ was playing way after the games, he would always have a big cookout over at his house. And there's something I think about the Samoan families as well. And he looks at them as his Aiga, I guess it's AIGA, is what he always says. And it's like, it's my family. He says they're my football family. And he's very, very good about all that stuff. And he wants everybody to shine. And he does his best to help everybody to shine. So we do have those, like you said, Keith, that are kind of like my boy's the best. But then you got other people that do have legit.
Yep. Thank goodness for some people like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it was a Sports Illustrated story. Maybe somebody did a story on the family, and I had shared that because it's just, they're so impressive. I just, they're really an asset to the community and to these kids as well. And then the final comment I have on related to this is, I've got a friend who works at a large company, and he's pretty high up in the company. And their president is a former soccer player, and he played in college, and he played after college. He played some as well, and had traveled around the world quite a bit. But they put an emphasis on hiring people who've played sports in the past, because he says there's something internal. He says, my team, he says, most of them are athletes. And he says, and I can take those athletes, are competitive. He says, and he said, and it doesn't matter what we put in front of them. He says, it's not for the money. It's not for anything. It's because they want to win. They want to be the best.
Right.
So they've got a whole bunch of people working for them, and they put a priority on hiring them, which is interesting as well. So all these experiences, they pay off in the end, and people recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Teamwork is a big thing. My company spends a lot of time because we're logistics. We hire a lot of military vets, because military people are phenomenal at logistics.
Yeah.
Same kind of thinking, the organized mindset.
Yep.
Yeah, I can totally relate. So a lot of sales teams are made up of athletes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying, Chad, about the about Samoan families, that's a big thing in. I'm guessing it's Samoa as a whole. I have a feeling I know a couple of them, not just football. It's interesting that it seems to either be football or wrestling, professional wrestling, because there's two different families that are the same exact way, exactly like that as professional wrestlers. One of them, they were originally in Whitehall, PA. Now they've gone down to Florida. They've retired and gone down to Florida. Wrestling names would be Afa and Sika. They were the Wild Samoans in WWE, WWF back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And their family is still kicking around the area up in Pennsylvania.
Didn't they get themselves in trouble like a couple years ago? I remember them being in the paper for something. Because they're like 10. That's like 10 minutes from me.
Right. There was a couple of injuries up there or something like that, and there was something involved, but nothing came of it. They moved the school. That's it. They moved the school to Florida. They're not in Pennsylvania anymore. One of the sons or one of the nephews opened their own school up in the same area up in Pennsylvania. But yeah, I mean, no wrestling.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Sorry.
No one is squeaky clean in that business at all. But they've kept a pretty good rapport. But yeah, Samoan families, it's a lot of families. I know, like, there's large Italian immigrants who up in the northern part of New Jersey that became tight knit, and soccer is a huge thing up in that area. In North Jersey, soccer was very, very big, especially in the 70s through like the 90s. Down to like, because here, I mean, Rutgers had several, I think 5 or 6 people that were in this area, had 5 or 6 people that were on that 94 World Cup team. Tony Meola, Tab Ramos, Alexi Lawless, they all were from, 2 of them were Tab and Alexi were from Rutgers. Tony was from Kearney. A couple of them were from the area up there. So that team, that U.S. team, was well represented for this area. And soccer became very big around here. It still is very big around here. Not as big as perhaps it could be, or perhaps it is in other parts of the world. But with the team itself that we have here, they're bringing in a couple more local kids here and there every year that end up making the Red Bull team. So they're trying to do a little community outreach in Major League Soccer, especially in these surrounding communities around the stadium. The stadium is in Harrison, which isn't exactly the best area.
It's actually not bad. I've been there, and it could be
gotten better. It's gotten better because we discussed in a previous show, Chad, you had mentioned the Newark riots. It had really started in issues in Harrison that escalated where they went into Newark, and things went really south after they moved into Newark across the river. But there is definitely a lot of community outreach from the Red Bulls to try to increase the soccer in that area. We're a big football state. We always have been. We always will be. But soccer is coming up in this area again. It's had its little run in the 90s and early 2000s. We had a couple of women that were on all the Olympic teams. They win all, pretty much have won everything in this country for a very long time. I think it's now 20 years that the women's soccer team in this country is ridiculously talented and play well, and they do great. But now they're trying to do it in the men's side. It's not going great, but it's getting there.
Yeah, but none of our kids are playing on those teams, so that doesn't help.
Oh no, to me, soccer is a little too dangerous, so to speak. It's one of those things that I've seen friends hurt, so it's kind of like, nah, we might stay away from that one. So
My kids never wanted to play in a sport where you had to continually move. Therefore, they would never play field hockey or soccer. Baseball is their speed because they could move and then stop and relax, move and then stop and relax.
That's funny.
I mean, like I was saying, with here with the soccer and all, but going over to Scotland, and as soon as you get into each town, they have their own like little team there. Like for where my wife comes from, they have the Greenock Mortons, and every Saturday, they get 10 to 12,000 people to see like this little team play, and I got there, and Heather's cousin showed up, and it was her cousin Paul, who's about our age, and he had his 3 sons who were anywhere from 10 to like 15. And they said, "Hey, Doug, you want to go outside and kick the ball around?" I said, "All right, sure." So they get in the car and we're driving, and I'm like, "Wow, where are we going?" They're like, "Oh, to the park to kick the ball around." I said, "All right, I thought we could just go in front of the house, but I guess not." So we get to the park, and there's a couple other kids, and they call them around. Then a little minivan pulls up, and out comes another team. And we were playing full field against a whole nother team, which they consider just, let's go kick the ball around.
Yeah.
And to see these kids like be able to like dribble and pass the ball around me, and it was just amazing. Like compared to like, over here what we consider soccer, and seeing the kids that either I've coached or played around, it was just like ridiculous. Like, you know, it's like the life over there, you know. So
Yeah, the big
I've had
pickup
similar
games around
experiences in
here.
Colombia.
What's that?
I've had similar experiences in Colombia too. It's a whole different level.
Yeah, the big pickup game here is basketball. I mean, and that happens obviously with a 5-on-5 sport like basketball but if you go in some of the parks around here, there's 5-on-5 basket, and you just sit there and watch it like, holy crap, these kids are good.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, anything would be good compared to me, that's for sure. That's not. I love to watch the game, but I can't play it to save my butt.
No, soccer or basketball. No, not for me either. I got an okay jump shot, but that's about it. So now
I played this game once with the kids, but they were. Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no! I was just gonna say one of the things like the other coach wasn't there to help me, so it was just me, and I had like an overwhelming amount of kids. And I was like, oh, you know what? I said, let's warm up today, and we'll play kick coach with the ball. So they all got their balls, and I'm just like running around there chasing me and trying to kick their soccer balls at me. But what I tripped over a stupid ball, went down, and you want to see like 10 kids kick a ball at you. All of a sudden, it got real.
I can imagine.
We
Yeah,
didn't play that game again.
I could see you being like Will Ferrell and kicking and screaming.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Doug, because when I was coaching for all those years in the 3 sports that I did, look, I have a lot of knowledge about baseball, but I'm not necessarily a coach. I'm a dad. I'm a volunteer dad who, okay, I'll help you coach. But I always would pick an assistant coach who actually was in depth at helping to teach the kids the techniques, the nuances of the game. And I was the rah-rah guy. I was really the one who could do great communication, bring the parents together, bring the kids together, get them motivated to go out there and kick butt. And then, I'd have the coaches, my assistant coaches would be teaching things like bunting and stealing and things like that. And, how to pass the ball, how to dribble in basketball and things like that. I learned how to get okay with that. I'm really good at that when, like an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. But after that, when you get really serious, that I'm not your guy. I'm more of the cheerleader.
Mhm. Which kind of leads us into what we were talking about. You just talking about Doug was talking about kicking the ball and kick the coach and kick the ball into the coach.
We can kick butt. I like that.
Talking about falling down and things like that. That kind of leads us into our discussion of what next week's show is going to bring. I've been rattling this idea around in my head for a couple of weeks, and for today was a pretty good show where we didn't where it didn't get heavy. We've had a few of them recently where we haven't gotten heavy at all. This is one of them that we really didn't. I don't think we got too heavy at all. So we're going to try to go even lighter next week. This is something, and I'm just this is going to be my lead into what we're talking about next week. I call it the hilarious pitfalls of being a parent. That moment where you're sitting in the living room or kitchen, fiddling around with your phone or on the computer, or which most people don't do, reading a magazine or a newspaper or an article or something, and the kid goes by, and then within the next minute, 30 seconds, you hear, and then you expect I'm okay.
Or I'm not okay.
basically, we ain't going to the hospital. That's what this next week's show is going to be about. Try to be the best of moments of being a parent, watching your kid fall and knowing there's nothing to freak out about. And you can't help but laugh at it. That's just the way it is because
Oh, I got stories.
it's a fact of life.
I think we all got stories on that.
This may be the first 2-hour show of Dads on Life. So from all of us here, I think we've had a pretty good week and got into an interesting topic here. We may revisit it as we go into the future, and the kids may be heading back to school, should be heading back to school. Hopefully, we will see what happens, or some variation of school. So from all of us here at Dads on Life, we will see you on the other side. Take care.
See y'all later.